Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Shadowverse. Now I'm feeling under the weather, so this is going to be a bit of an experiment as we go through the single player story. The good news is, going through the main story, there's not any real interaction. The bad news is that I may just get really quiet. So let's just hop into it, let's start, and let's see where this story is going to wrap up. Now, we are kind of in a questionable place there because, like some of the previous chapters, there is often a unimportant chapter or unimportant episode that tells you a story that doesn't really matter, and it's just kind of a build up and a world building event towards the wrap up episode that happens right after it. And so, not a lot really happened in the previous episode. Not really. We were introduced to some characters. They revealed in Eris's story, and Eris's story alone, that this is a world that once had technology, so there is that small chance, or I'd say it's about a 50-50 chance, that this is Tetra's world hundreds of years in the future. Although I don't think it really matters too much, because I think we're going to still just end up fighting something that is going to be Virga Magma at the end, and if that is another Nerva vessel, then whatever. If it isn't, then whatever. It would be interesting, although I think beyond the realm of the creativity of these writers, if this was the story of how creatures become keepers, and that keepers aren't always born as keepers. It'd be interesting if it turned out that all of the leaders we're playing as eventually have a maximum level of character development or power creep development, and they become keepers that are good versus keepers that are bad, like Nexus and Nerva. That would also allow you to eliminate characters like Urias.
Between nature and man. Severed are the bonds between man and his brother. Like lost children, they make vows and form allegiances. Until steel inevitably crosses steel.
So the two tribes basically just end up fighting each other, which is kind of pointless.
They are but babes, howling and writhing, crawling toward any goal to distract from sure demise. It is she who bore them and gave them bounty.
The problem
it is she who
with the general conflict here is it's less a mature conflict than even the Count of Solari and the Blade Rights. It really is just like one group fighting because one brother is fighting another brother, one prince is fighting another brother, and then they seem to be awkwardly loyal for no reason.
Overgrown with maternal ivy.
We've never seen this character, so this must be Virga Magna.
Reap they the consequences
and that definitely does look like a keeper.
Or of present conflict. It is the mother who decides all harvest.
And why would I say this is a keeper? Because they spent the effort to put so much ridiculous stuff that it's taking up the entirety of the screen, as far as just high fashion and elements all over the place. Let's see. But yeah, the actual conflict between the two sides that we've been dealing with is just kind of terrible.
The sky, the land, man and animal. Everything was meager.
Interesting, we're getting like a recap and then another recap. And there was no challenge or game in between those two.
Preyed upon our tribes, and angry spirits threatened our very existence. From the youngest babes, gone before they knew their mother's
Suppose it's also worth mentioning that Eris made it to Asylum, and that really was a dull revelation.
As they were all consumed by the world's cruelty. Gnawed bonds, torn emotions.
this seems like
Each
this is a
connection I lost was a
narration
lesson
from
in how meaningless
Virga
life could be.
Magma, where previously it was just the narrator
Which is
themselves
why it was
talking.
strange that when I began to wither, I chose to cling to this world. I didn't know what I was clinging to, but I knew I needed to wish for something. I knew I needed hope.
But also it's
Please,
worth mentioning
I want to live
that
without fear of
Virga
beast or
Magna,
spirit, without fear of starvation.
according to the old story, was
A light
given
answered
power
my plea.
by a traveling magician,
I
which I would have
remembered its
assumed
worth.
would have been a keeper,
And then
in the sense that she was turned into a vessel for a keeper.
I was the mother of all life. She who
Viridia
knew and
Magna,
quenched
whatever.
the starving world.
I'm never going to be able to pronounce that. That's too many letters. Why are they hiding her face? Who knows? Unless she ends up looking like Tetra. Like that's the only twist that could really be here. Or unless she ended up looking like Misty. Or unless she somehow looked like Orisa or Eris. Or like the random surprise faces that she could have are fairly low. So it'd be weird if this was like 10 chapters and there was actually no gameplay in it at all. Like
This fighting has to
at
stop.
what point then does it seem just kind of pointless to even add more main story content if there's no gameplay challenges and thus no rewards
That was the lot of
for going through the main
Teresa,
story?
How are you managing?
Hey, I remember you.
I could
I saw
imagine
you with King Balion.
that you could have released individual subchapters,
You took care
and
of those
each
Managama
subchapter
rebels,
didn't really
Thanks for
require
your
you to
support.
beat or play the game,
They
but
spotted us,
for sitting
so
through the
it's a
5 or
relief to
6
have you on
minutes,
our side.
they gave you a new skin or sleeve or
You said it wrong.
flare or
We're not
emblem
here
or
to support
something,
Skull.
and it really was just every subchapter was just a narrative way of introducing a new character. See, most of these fighters too don't seem like they're even really capable of being fighters.
If you're not with us, then that means
I think this is also the first time we've ever heard them have like a sword drawing sound
They won't
effect.
listen to reason.
Erica, stop!
When taking a life, you must act swiftly and decisively. Too much thought clouds the mind. Enemy or ally, good or evil, one must swing the blade with an unwavering hand. This
I don't think
is what
Erica
inspires
really needs to
art.
kill these two. I think she's more
That
than
seems
capable.
really cruel.
Uh,
It doesn't matter what they believe. They're all people living in the same world.
I think you
aren't
could
they?
easily knock
You're right,
these
Lisa.
two out.
And that's why. That's why it must be you. You need to be the one to deliver that message. Go to this world's king. Show him your conviction. I pray you find victory.
Thanks, Erica. Be careful, okay?
So Erica is kind of taking the role of
My actions
like
were righteous
defender.
because the princess was infallible. Anyone she deemed evil,
Of
I'd
Orisa
gladly
now.
cut down. But now, I believe Orisa's path to be the path of justice. Those who would interfere with her actions shall meet their end at my blade.
there's no place for you savages in this
We're gonna have a
world.
lot of this apparently, just radicals
No one
and
gave you
loyalists
cowards permission to run things.
fighting each other. Once again, it's worth mentioning that
It's already
it would have been
started.
really helpful to have had
So,
like all the radicals wear orange and all the loyalists wear
do what a
green,
major's gotta
or
do, eh?
have the radicals have a
Get down
tattoo.
there and guide those troops. You better buck up too, Rowan. This world is dying.
But
We
this
used to school cowboys
really
kids
just
standing around afraid to
feels
act.
like a kind of pointless lines of dialogue.
You don't deserve to live on it. But the
Like-
virtuous mother created Natera. How can you slaughter the being that gave us life?
I guess this text might have been useful if, say, this episode came out 3 months after the previous episode, and this is like being done for recap, but honestly it just feels like they're just repeating information. It really feels like they hired a third party to write it, and they contracted a certain number of sentences and a certain number of words, and they're just cheating to make that minimum number of words by having flashbacks and having repeated information. Did Gino as a character introduced fairly late, only really in Rowan's story?
I joined Managarma because I wanted to break free of those nightmares.
Deep down, they're all struggling against their own demons.
Take this!
Once again, I think Rowan would be fairly easy to knock out all of these people.
Sir, what are you?
Like,
Stars, an enemy officer?
Stop this, both of you. Nothing good comes from war. It will rob you of everything you love if you let it.
You may be pals with Lord Vardane, but we're under orders to take out anyone that tries to stop us. Skull would welcome you into our fold, but if you still side with Managarmas,
Forgive me.
like,
We will end this fight. Rest easy until then.
it would be fairly easy
who the
for
hell are you?
someone
You were with them the whole time, weren't you?
like these travelers to
neither
just
enemy
show
nor
up into
ally.
a
And
war-torn
there shouldn't be a war at
land
all.
and become the
You'll
new
see
bad
soon
guy
You're all
fairly
headed for the
easily
same
and
fate.
unify it.
If I have to prove it to you, then so be it.
Which, in a sort of funny way, the Code Geass crossover, that kind of is the theme of what happens at some point in the story, is that
It's all over for
one of the
you.
characters becomes the main bad guy amongst many different fighting sections and unifies pretty much the whole world against a common enemy.
All over for you, was it? Doesn't that seem a little, I don't know, ambitious for you dudes?
Still, Latika is sounding very weird.
Find out.
Now,
Their numbers are vast.
in this fight,
Yep.
once again, I think all of these are radicals,
Boy, if we can take care of her, then Skulls is
because
good
there would be
stuff.
really no reason why Stoneclaw, as a loyalist, would fight her own
What we're
men.
about to do to you.
And I don't know why her own
Hey,
men
come
would
here a sec.
actually.
When I give you the sign, make a break for it.
But what of the fight here?
These goons are after me. No reason you should waste your time on them too. Perf. Now, where were we?
This is taking. We're only like 13 minutes in here into the story,
Not over yet.
and it's still just like
Fighting for the
taking
future
too
of the
long.
Terra. We'll keep going until the bitter end.
Lame. Now's your chance,
Even
Honeydew.
Stoneclaw can pretty much knock out
We shall
everybody.
meet again. Of this I swear.
What's getting away?
Yoo-hoo! Forget you've got bigger fish to fry? Don't wet yourselves, okay?
Why do you fight? Why do you struggle so?
Who's talking now?
Two individuals will never truly speak the same tongue. Only through steel may they come to understand one another. Within mortal dialogue, malice and enmity are bred. As a natural course, the flames of war ignite, disperse, and consume life. Shining amongst the blaze, brighter than the surrounding
So once
fire,
again, we have the narrator
four will
talking, I
stand,
guess.
holding their ambitions aloft. The Great Mother glowers at those who would oppose her, ready to unleash her rage. This world,
Did we
I
really
will
need
destroy it.
a setup episode and then another setup chapter? Like, do you really need 3 of those with like no gameplay at all? That seems very ridiculous. It would have been better, frankly, to merge chapter 1 with chapter 2, and then that wouldn't have stood out. But here's the other problem now, is with having spent so much of that time doing that, there really isn't enough room to bring Tetra and Urias and Luna and Isabel and Yuan and possibly even Belphomet into the story. At best, they show up at the very end, and that's it. Otherwise, this is just going to be the wrap-up of the Seeds of Conflict story, which is fine, but also there's not been a proper build-up for Verga Magna as a bad guy either way.
You need to be
Like,
the one to deliver that message.
it kind of feels
Go to
like
this world's king.
they
Show
wanted
him your conviction.
to try and figure out how they could have a keeper
Baelion,
basically attack the leaders like Nerva did. I mean, Nexus did, and by putting them into a dream state without actually doing a dream state again. And maybe they couldn't really think of anything, and thus now they're just trying to stretch for time.
have to hurry.
At a certain level, we have had 2 previous battles against vessels or the power of keepers, and neither one of those have really turned into direct fights against the keepers. So they need to finally give in and have the keepers actually fight the leaders of the game. Even if that means that the leaders of the game are going to barely succeed, or it's going to end in a stalemate.
I needed to talk to you.
But that literally is the story that's been played out, is that people are fighting each other through sword combat left and right.
Then explain all of this.
A peaceful resolution is no more than mere fantasy now.
Yeah. There's
Orisa,
something
we arrive at the fateful
hypocritical
hour.
about
Which
Baelion
side
attacking
will
people.
you choose, Skull or Managarmer?
Well, it seems like Skull's side.
I choose neither.
It seems like their idea of helping or healing Verga
Child,
Magma
you are very kind.
has been thrown out the window,
Please stop this.
because
Why do we have to fight?
that they seem like they were
Because here,
pacifists.
on the battlefield, kindness is venom. It poisons the mind and leads you astray. I must become stronger, and to do that, I reject your idealism. I am the forest.
This is a
and by
fairly
my blade,
realistic
I will
fight,
illuminate the
I would say.
shadows of this domain.
That there definitely is an argument to say that
We fight
Orisa is just a naive idealist in multiple worlds that just cannot tolerate that level of idealism. They don't have time for it. They don't have the patience for it. And I guess we get a real fight there between Orisa and Baelion, which I don't think we actually had a fight against Baelion before this point. Maybe we did, but I don't remember it.
Child. However,
And then
I believe
you have the weirdness of
kindness is venom on the battlefield.
she just theoretically won that card game,
There's no point in hurting
and
other people.
thus won the battle,
Under
and
normal
yet now he's
circumstances, I would agree.
going to defeat her.
Both share the same life force. To intentionally strike at your kin is foolish. And yet, Viridia Magna will soon awaken, and with her rise will come Netera's end. We've no time to rebuild broken bridges.
You do if you work together. Aren't you and Baldane brothers? If family can't work together, who can?
Even if one of us
It seems
loses our ties, both sides must
seems
agree
kind of
on
pointless
some
to even
form of
care
bond.
about
I
Balion
cannot bear the
and his
burden
brother's
of brotherhood.
relationship. Like,
There's nothing more for
they
me to
really
consider.
didn't tell enough
will be
backstory of the
victorious,
good
and I will
times
bring light to
between
the terror.
Valdane and Balion to establish that they at one point were like
We'll lose the east and the north too.
at one point they were actually very close. It
Yes,
is
Your Majesty.
very
This way.
possible, although in most stories and TV it's never suggested this way. It is very possible to have a brother, particularly
We meet
a
again.
half-brother
I will
in the
not
royal
spare
court
a second
that you
time.
paid little attention
Advise
to
you
or
to
spent
afford
no
me the same
real time with.
courtesy.
So there may never have been a relationship
Can't
there.
stop him. What should I do?
And if the story's not going to
Don't
tell
walk
us that
any
there's a
further.
relationship there, then there's really no
You
bitter
took the words right
breakup.
out of my mouth.
And it
This is
seems
no
like
time to feel sorry for myself.
Arissa is failing miserably.
That's why it must be you. You need to be the one to deliver that message. Go to this world's king. Show him your conviction.
Erica said it had to be me. She believed in me, so I need to believe in myself.
It would be also fairly easy, I think, for Arissa and Erica, Rowan, and Eris to just all go fight
Upon Lydia
Balion
Magna's fourth
and fight
the world will meet
his
again.
brother and fight
Or so
maybe
it is.
Misty too, just defeat all three of them and take over control of
That
their
was roar number 2.
groups.
I can't stick around here and mope all day. Time to get out there and do something.
That they try, and they do a fairly decent job of not having the main characters be super overpowered, but they still feel like they are a little overpowered compared to a random hero. And at a certain point, you're gonna want some improvement of powers of the main characters, which means every time they go to a new world, the new world has to have stronger opponents. There needs to be some power creep in both
hello,
ways.
Erica. I see you're wearing that dreary expression again.
Mr. Lena.
Yeah, she's played
Goodness, why are you
basically
bracing
no
yourself for an
role in
attack?
the story at
I
all.
was under the impression I'd gained your trust.
Look around. I have cut down countless numbers of your allies. Wouldn't you think I was in league with Managarmer?
Perhaps. But what of the fallen Managama soldiers in your wake? One glance is all it took to grasp the situation. And besides, I believe I know you well enough to understand how you think.
My companion said this conflict had to be stopped no matter what. And I'll do anything I can to make that happen.
So you'll willingly become an
It
enemy to
kind of
both
feels like
Skull and
Miss
Managama?
Delina should have been the
That's
one
the path
preaching
you've
that
chosen.
concept.
You ought to see it through.
Even if it means I might end your life with my own hands.
Oh, but there's very little possibility of that. You won't be able to kill me as you are now, I'm afraid. After all, you still aren't being honest with yourself, and it's reflecting in your blade work.
More of those infernal spirits.
So,
Thanks to Viridia Magna, it seems Natera has descended into madness. Are you prepared for the coming storm?
there still could be a twist where Miss Delina is
I see
Viridian
no
Magna,
clouds to worry about.
Very
but
well.
I don't know what
Then let
game
us
she would be
fight.
playing. And
I,
inherently,
Forest Prince-
this would be.
Actually, let's skip the speech, shall we? Come, I shall be your match.
I appreciate that, skipping speeches. Yes, this would be much like the Under Marshal all over again if it turned out she was the vessel. And it definitely opens up to
It's growing weaker.
the door
This
to
fight is almost
almost
the
over.
idea that the writers of the main story can
On the
only tell
contrary,
2 or 3
it
stories.
already is. May the forest guide you on your journey to the great beyond.
The only other thing you could really do with Mistelina
Is
as a
that power of
character
yours a form of magic?
is make her perhaps a
There's that
robot
peculiar word again.
or
What is
something
this
from the past,
magic you speak
or she's gonna be the new
Guess not.
mother of the
of? I
new
suppose
world.
I've never
She's
properly
gonna replace
explained my powers, have I?
Viridia Magna.
Well, in layman's terms, I form ether into cleansing currents. Handy trick, isn't it? Furthermore, I can heal small injuries on the spot, you see. And if the injury is more grave, we can always use the healing spring.
Your ability resembles a power we call magic in my world. But you're the only person I've seen use it here.
Well, that makes sense. I'm fairly certain I'm the only one in Natera who can use it. But
That
being
really does
said,
put her
it isn't
in
exactly
a
an
unique
impressive
spot.
power. I can only use it to heal minor injuries and purify blighted creatures.
May I ask you something?
And what might that be?
What do you intend to use your power for?
For the sake of Natera, of course. The world bestowed me with my gift, so it is only fair that I return the favor.
She
May I
might
ask
just
you why
become
you
the
wield
one
that
that
sword?
heals
To put an
Virgo
end to this
Magna.
conflict.
But that's your friend's rationale, is it not? What do you believe? You're unsure of your own reason for fighting. That's what this is all about, isn't it?
Well,
They've got you now, princess! You're coming with us!
My, what ill manners!
I don't know why the radicals would
I
even
will
bother
assist
try
you.
and kidnap her.
What are you doing? Go, Erica.
but
Find your
It's just-
conviction and use it to guide your blade,
Like
just as you did when we fought our
the
duel.
thing here that I think is important to say is Korean writers, Japanese writers, they're not stupid. They don't have a
Oh no!
incredibly different way of thinking
There isn't much
that-
time left. Go now.
that they
Hurry.
would think it would be like traditional or
Take care not to
realistic
get
to
injured,
just
George.
repeat yourself over and over again. Not to my
then,
understanding or knowledge, at
I
least.
suppose I've
I
kept
could
you waiting
be
long
wrong
enough.
about that, but I don't
Nice.
think so. So, I feel rather insulted
Oh, goodness.
when you have
No patience.
2
If we stop you and the
chapters
Stone
before
Lord, victory will be within our
um,
grasp. You'll die.
Erica staying
Members of
behind
Skull
to
are
let
quite skilled,
Arissa
you know.
escape.
Things won't
Then the
proceed
next
as
chapter you
smoothly as
have
you hope.
Ladisha,
Whatever you say, princess.
Latika
We've got some
staying
strong
behind
backup on
to
our
let
side too.
Eris escape, and now we have Mistelina
Powerful man
staying
from another
behind.
world who swings a giant spear. Well, scared yet?
So she's staying
A man
behind
from another
to let
world.
Erica escape.
Sounds as though Erica
So,
has an ally who drifted off to
It
Managama's
feels like
side.
what's going to happen in the next chapter is we're just going to
What'd you
run
say?
into
And thank the stars for
to
that.
someone else
Good could
either
still come
bailing
out of
on
this hopeless
or
situation.
Mistelina or somebody
Hey!
or Mauser
I
even.
know our
Yeah,
otherworldly
it'd probably be
friends will
Mauser
find
staying
victory,
behind to let
but not the
uh,
victory of warmongers. They'll
Rowan
end this
escape.
conflict and save Natera.
And you just didn't need that. And if you wanted to have that happen, pick one character or put them all together as a group. You could easily have combined the last 3 chapters where 3 of the main leaders or all 4 of the main leaders were together with Mistelina, and then Mistelina stays behind and fights with like maybe Ladika, and then all the main characters escape in one fell swoop, and that's just one chapter, instead of just having the same thing repeated over and over again. This is really going horribly as far as story writing, which is a shame, because I was getting up to the point where I was thinking that the the writing was getting to like a 7.6, maybe even a 7.7 out of 10. I was going to be really hard pressed to get it up to think that their rating would get to an 8 or higher. But now I think we're approaching back to
Well, it needs cowards even less.
it really feels like we're falling back down to a 6 out of 10, even a 5.5 out of 10. Wonder if the blighted spirits show up when there is conflict.
Time is not on our side.
It certainly would make a lot more sense. Oh, instead of Mouser, it's going to be Degina that stays behind to let Rowan escape.
Gina, aren't you a sight for sore eyes?
You holding up all right, Rowan?
Yeah. How about yourself?
The conversations that they have before someone stays behind to let the other one run also aren't particularly well written.
What is that supposed to mean?
I've decided to bring an end to the conflict between Skull and Managarmer.
But what good will that do? If we don't do something about Viridia Magna, then it's all over for Netera.
Neither one of them are doing anything about Viridia Magna, though.
We just have to find it.
It's all sunshine and rainbows in that head of yours, isn't it?
Tell me, Gina, do you really believe defeating Skull will bring peace to Netera?
Won't it?
There's like 2 more roars before the world is destroyed.
It's nothing more than an escape from reality.
I agree with that 100%.
She went out to pick flowers for me when she was attacked. By the time I found her, it was too late. The ground was already covered with her blood. That horrific scene still haunts
Of course,
me.
we now have a second flashback to the same scene,
Because I wanted to break free
even
of
if
the
this was a
cycles.
slightly different part of the same scene.
You said it yourself.
That doesn't change what I have to do.
Leave them to me.
I'm not interested in your special treatment. Especially since you've made it clear we aren't allies.
Then let's do this.
Yeah, there's just kind of nothing being said there. Like, if her conversation with him was really abridged down to about 3 sentences, and it was combined with the past 3 chapters, then you actually have a nice action-packed sequence instead of a extremely long, drawn-out section that is only there because they wanted to have a few more fights. And they're not even really doing a great job of
Don't
having
go all soft on me.
a
Just
decent
go.
amount of fights.
Are you sure about this, Gina?
What? Did you expect me to stop you? Well, considering I'm a Managarmer captain and all, I probably should. But I asked you for a favor, and I need you to see it through. But you know, I don't think we've lost the Lord Commander yet. Will you try to get through to him one last time?
There is that point also with the Lord Commander really being kind of this crazy suicidal character.
This isn't going to end the way you want it to.
I already had everything I wanted in the past. And she's not coming back. So don't concern yourself with what I want.
Yeah,
You're a
Gina
kind soul, Gina.
and her
Hope you stay
backstory
safe out there.
teases to be way more interesting a story than the
What a
story that's being
foolish
told
man.
to you.
There you are, Captain. I've been looking all over for you.
Apologies, Major.
I've got dreadful news. Word has it Rowan turned tail and joined the enemy. Oh, this is a catastrophe.
So they're just kind of throwing mouse
With
goes
all
here.
due respect, you've got it all wrong, sir.
But that tough puff scoundrel attacked one of our own men.
Rowan has been acting of his own free will. He was never one of us. Our goals were just aligned for a time.
Gina,
Her voice is a
did he
little
say
too
something
rough.
to you?
Maybe, maybe not. But I'd like to ask that you keep this between us, Major. Word will get out eventually anyway, so there's no use stirring the pot.
You still believe Rowan to be trustworthy?
As a military officer, I'd have to say no. But personally speaking,
I've decided to bring an end to the conflict between Skull and
A flashback to something that literally happened 2 minutes
but
ago.
what good will that do? If we
Man.
don't do something about Viridia Magna, then it's all over for Natera.
There has to be a way out of this. We just have to find it.
It's really going
His
nowhere
eyes
slowly.
are honest and true. If anyone is capable of saving both Lord Valdane and Natera, it's him. I have no intention of abandoning our battle with Skull. However, there's a chance those other worlders could stumble upon an answer. So we ought to keep our options open. That's all there is to it, Major.
I find it hard to believe that such a perfect solution
Come on,
exists.
just wrap up.
But at the same time,
Was that the third
the
roar?
vile mother is at it again. That was the second roar.
No, we're just seeing the same
Whatever
thing.
happens,
Whatever
I'll
happened
simply do
at the same
what I
time
have to do.
from 4 different
I'll leave the more
perspectives.
troublesome tasks to the troublemakers.
You're right. All we can do is keep our tails high and follow orders. That way at least we'll have no regrets in the end. Or I'm not worth my fur.
Okay, and I hate to do this, but I'm gonna pause the video and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So I took about a 20-minute break there, so this will be an experiment, although I don't think it would really change anything. But it will be a small experiment on just, is this type of story, the way it's being depicted and given to you, better ingested, I suppose is the word, if you take breaks in between each chapter. I don't think that really works though, because in the end of the, it takes an hour and a half to get through one episode. If you're taking a 10-minute break between each of that, you're gonna add another hour and a half minimum.
You mustn't.
Natera's history? The hell are you talking about?
Yeah. Eris is not going to succeed in talking about the stuff she's learned. Nobody's going to really believe her, which is kind of the problem of her finding that information alone anyways.
She's not putting out energy at all.
They completely exhausted her power.
Oh, Mom, do you understand how bad this is? Sure, we've got some ether stored up for a rainy day, but who knows when we'll run through it all. The Magitech trains, the air filters, our entire civilization's going to crumble. I heard there are mobs heading to the tower to get into the ether reserves. They say riots have sprung up all over as people compete for food. Mom, you gotta find shelter, okay? I'm not sure how much longer things will be safe back at home. Please, please look after yourself.
Yeah, now we're getting flashback to the history stuff that doesn't really matter.
Destruction was not wrought by Viridia Magna's wrath after all. They drained her of all ether, causing her to fall into a slumber. Then riots arose as a result of diminishing resources, with famine and larger conflict occurring not long after. Common knowledge dictates that this world was once decimated by Viridia Magna's rage, but the truth is quite different. The people abused and exhausted her power, forcing her to fall into a deep slumber. Once bereft of their source of life, whole populations fought amongst themselves.
Yeah, there's just...
You see,
I'm not even paying attention to what's being said here, it's just the old information.
its demise.
Only a skull coward who tried to distract us with such nonsense. History's not gonna save us when the vile mother roars for the 4th time.
You're just like the rest of them. You preach peace and happiness, but where's your solution, huh?
Yeah, neither one of them really have a solution.
One question. Where do you believe the current bloodshed will lead you?
Do we look like fortune tellers? We're fighting because we've got no other choice.
How naive. I will not deny your resolve, nor the logic of your actions. However, the fact remains that this reckless battle is a fruitless affair. Forgive me, but I must be allowed to pass through this area.
Just not even paying attention at all. Like,
leave now. There is no meaning in prolonging this fight.
You understand nothing. What gives you the right to decide when our fight is over?
this is, and I don't know if that's just, if this is just because I'm not feeling particularly healthy or energetic,
How could you
but
possibly understand what drives
this is
us to
just
fight?
like
I do not
boring.
claim to understand your feelings. I am
It's
from a different world, and I am
it's
not
just
part
like
of your
we
world.
don't need the talking. I don't care if they're talking when a main character
I fully
is
recognize
talking
the
to just
futility of war,
a generic
and with it,
radical or
the sadness
loyalist.
of lost life.
I feel like
There was a
each of
town,
those characters
and in that town
should
was
be
a
their own
secret
unique
hall.
character,
It was there that I worked,
and then there
and it
might
was
be a
there
little
that
bit
I
more
served
interest
my
in the
god.
story.
The people of the village were kind, diligent, and they died. All of them. The neighboring village was struck with famine. They wanted food, and so they attacked the village I was in. I was away that day. When I returned, all had been destroyed. I cursed the world. No matter the justification.
Just flashbacks to the
to
previous
throw away
episode.
innocent lives for the sake of simple rivalry. I can think of nothing more base. I shall end this conflict, but not for your sakes. No, I will bring salvation to this world for myself, because it is what I must do.
And because the story is just like taking forever to get anywhere, I would more prefer, frankly, if just the main characters were just really, really brutal and slashed the characters and killed them in one hit just to speed everything. This really feels like this could just be better depicted as a race sequence. Maybe doing something, wow, this is the first time we're actually going to be around the big tree. If you had kind of like a Naruto style, we're going to think and talk as we're running at a hyper fast pace, that would at least make a little bit more sense. Is that where the first roar happened, everybody says we must get to the great tree as soon as possible. Everybody's racing at that point. You have loyalists and radicals, and you have the leaders. Everybody's just rushing there. The Erica and Rowan are just swiping and knocking out people as they're running. That would put some more action into it. It would set the tone so that there's less just standing and talking going on, instead of what we've had here, which is between basically chapter 4 and chapter 7, the basic characters just standing in the way of the main characters, so they have fights, but then it really not changing the narrative or the direction of the storytelling at all, because you're just
When I was at Hope's End,
you're just gonna,
I longed for
you know,
peace
they're
and
gonna win.
prosperity to return to the world. And somehow,
So now they're showing
my wish
Viridia
was
Magna's
granted.
face,
The fields turned lush.
and I guess this might be
Life was burgeoning.
pre-keeper ability.
Our very existence
Her face
was fertile once more.
does not look particularly like Miss Delina's or anyone else's. So there was really no point in them hiding hiding her appearance.
Wonderful. Your plan feels correct.
So there is a keeper talking
When the
to
last memories
someone.
of the Dark Ages faded, so too did the contentment of the populace
And
wane. They grew bored and unsatisfied with what I could offer.
It,
I was pierced with tubes, and they began to consume my very being.
Like, if
My poor
the
children,
assistant in the past that
untold
that
progress,
was
they were not ready for it.
experimenting on
They had
Virga
not yet learned to
magma,
appreciate my
if that
blessings.
isn't Belphamot,
But my body was made
then
a
it
conduit for
just
them.
becomes
So I
a
accepted their hubris
story
willingly.
of Nerva or some
They
other
devoured
keeper
me, exhausting my power until
succeeding
everything
in
came
her
back.
plot to destroy the
By
world
time I awoke,
to a certain level, and then the world
was
being
far too gone.
reborn into
I
more
could
of
no
a
longer correct
forest
the selfish
world,
course of my progeny. The life I once nurtured,
which once again would
the
just be an
bonds,
indicator of
the emotions,
the
the link between the earth and my children. It had all grown twisted and unfamiliar. I was at hope's end.
I lost what I was going to say there.
So I wished for
Yeah,
a new
it goes
world,
to show that the keepers are
and
just
I made it
ineffective
so.
at completely
Life
destroying
returned
a
to its
universe.
primeval state, just as I had willed. However, it seemed I had lost my internal peace. Something within me began to stir. You are no mother. It would sting. You are no mother.
Here we have the up and down
Fester.
Thou
voice.
hast felt fear, the fear of embracing life and the folly it breeds therein.
So now
Fear?
a keeper is
Mortals are
trying
flawed,
to manipulate
forsaken.
her.
Through mere existence they carveth a path toward destruction. And thou art the fairest fool of them all in recreating such insolent beings.
And I wouldn't hate
I
the
no longer
idea.
want them to see or bear their wrongs.
It would be an interesting story to see a keeper
Fearest erring once more.
turn somebody into a vessel.
No longer want to
But
be
you
mother to
really
fools.
have to focus only on that
Children
character
having
if you're going to
mistakes.
tell that tale. You can't
Fear
have a story
Destroy
where you
them.
have 4 of the main leaders and then 4
Fear
other
them.
side characters
Destroy
being
it.
introduced.
Fear thy spawn. Destroy thy world.
If you were going to try and do this, you might have an A plot and a B plot where you have a character you just don't recognize at
I will
all.
be no mother to fools.
And then
You,
you can see
my
her
children,
as a vessel
You
and her
took our
hair
bond,
color changed, and
my love.
she now has a ridiculous
And now
amount.
You will face your punishment.
Ridiculous
for biting the
amount of
hand that
stuff.
fed you, for betraying the womb that gave you life, for driving me to hope's end yet again.
Nothing will be spared from devastation.
And this, we get to see Nerva again. Which they really dropped the ball on Nexus. They should have just defeated Nexus. Or had Nexus always been the bad guy instead of moving on to Nerva. And then sticking to Nerva for several chapters. Several episodes. Yeah. If the previous episode and this episode did have an A plot and a B plot, and the B plot was just always showing this person who was going to be revealed to be Virga Magma later,
Baleon!
that would be
You're alone, are you? Don't move,
Probably.
you cowards.
more of an
I
interesting
don't
tale.
require a guard to deal with the likes of you.
You dare look down on...
I dare say the poor fellows underestimated your conviction, Father.
Father.
No one thinks that you're capable of much without the Stoneclaw's protection. But I know what you can do.
So I
Which begs the question,
did
you
think
fighting
that
for the
maybe
sake of
she
Skull?
was going to be
for the fate of Natera?
the daughter of
Merely
him,
for
but
yourself?
I kind of had been more leaning to her being the sister of the two
Don't
brothers.
be daft.
It does certainly open up some questions
For
as
whatever you believe in, Father, it's none of my concern.
is she
Sometimes it's best to let
who's
brothers
the
have their
mother?
quabbles.
Like, is Lydica the
I
mother?
never realized it before, but stars, you're your own woman now. Then again, I suppose you've always
course.
been mature for your age.
How you go from a lion
You'll
character
have
to a
forgive
cat
me,
girl?
Mr. Lena.
I guess Lydica kind of
exactly?
has to be the
I
mother,
should have told you more.
unless Gina is the
But
mother.
instead, I betrayed your trust. And I did it without so much as second-guessing the consequences.
This is a great example of
Don't be
writing
so
relationship
cryptic, Father.
and doing
I haven't the
absolutely
faintest
nothing
clue
with
to what
it.
you're referring to.
Like, terrible, terrible writing.
We're family. No matter what wrongs we've inflicted on each other in the past, we're still connected.
You always were wise beyond your years. I guess I shouldn't be surprised you were blessed with the ability to manipulate ether.
I am the forest princess after all.
My daughter. I have to face him now, before it's too late.
Be my guest. Give dear Uncle Shadow my kindest regards.
It
Of
really
course.
feels like, once again, this story would matter a lot
Now,
more
let's get you patched up.
if...
You. What are you? Oh, just healing your wounds. But only a little. It wouldn't do if you sprung up and lopped my head off.
Why? Aren't we enemies?
Yeah.
Enemies? What a silly notion. Aren't we both alive and well? Isn't life worth protecting? Whether friend or foe, we're all connected, you see. By virtue of existing in the same time and place, we breathe.
Like,
and
this is a
live off
nice
the same
sentiment,
life
and
force.
this is a nice story,
Oh, you look confused.
but
You must think I'm speaking nonsense.
it really
Why
does not
no
play
one
any
understand when I talk
role.
about such elementary things? No matter. Even if I can't convince you, I won't change my stance. Just as you are free to keep your own.
We run into a danger
Don't
here
blame us if
of there
you regret
being
this later.
just
King's a
magic
coward.
being thrown in to
Princess is a
explain how
fool.
she's gonna
What a
be the new
kingdom.
mother.
Oh, come now.
She's gonna be the new
One
mother
would
of the
think
new
after
world.
having your life saved, you would at least thank your rescuer. Well, never mind then. I wonder what will become
Or it'd be
of
funny
father
if,
and
like,
uncle's
she
fate.
merged with Vargamanga
I
Magma.
just hope they don't harm each other. Naive as that thought may be.
But having her be the daughter definitely does introduce the question of who was the mother.
Here.
We kind of don't know who his mother was, other than she was the queen, and both of their fathers were the king, or at least officially both of their fathers are kings. Unofficially, these two are not related at all.
Here, where we first met.
As I recall, our first encounter was in Father's chambers.
You boorish oaf. We may have exchanged pleasantries in the late king's room, but the first time we truly recognized each other was here. Back then you loathed me. You couldn't so much as stand the sight of me. And
I
yet,
don't believe
with
that's
this
the truth.
waterfall as witness, you saved me. Why?
I don't know. My instincts took control of my body, and I was charging forward to save you before
They've
I realized.
completely dropped the ball as far as setting
How
up this
very
fight.
like you.
How very like your idea of me.
I can't think of a more perfect stage on which to settle our differences. The place where it
You
all
might as well have
began.
just had
Whose
these
blood will stain this
these
ground,
two
I wonder?
characters be
Mine
like the
or
Goku and
yours?
Vegeta type characters,
I will
where
fulfill my
every
duty
time you
always.
see them, they are either
Forest
right about to
shut.
fight each other, or they have just fought each
I
other,
wouldn't have it any other
and
way.
and they're just
I am
constantly
the corrupter of life, after
fighting.
all. Can't have someone of my power running amok in your domain.
Then you just
can you? Oh,
can
great forest
write
king.
them off as just
It falls on me.
people who
to
don't
illuminate
think
the
much
wicked
and
darkness that plagues
fight
the forest.
as almost play.
Shall we begin?
Prepare to face the light, my brother.
But instead they have to have these
I've been prepared
super long conversations.
than you'll ever know.
And I guess we get a custom CG of both of them, which I think that's new. I don't think we've ever seen two characters in a custom CG before. In all honesty, I think this probably is teaching me too that I would not enjoy playing a visual novel that was around a lot of conflict and fighting, and probably fantasy. It does certainly explain why a significant amount of games that have fighting in them, that have a visual novel style of telling their story, become more like RPGs and use something often like RPG Maker. That way there's turn-based combat and more RPG style of combat instead of a collectible card game, or there's less instances of there actually being dialogue, thus less breaks in the action. And if you're going to play something closer to a pure visual novel, almost all of those are either like mysteries, murder mysteries, or by far romance stories, whether they have adult content or not. And the romance stories do make a lot of sense, because if you're trying to have relationships with people and go on dates and things, that's where communication and talking makes sense. Whereas
I want revenge on every life who dared call me the son of a concubine. But you were the one who drove me into your shadow.
Valdane still doesn't make sense. See, this fight easily could have been chapter 2 of the previous episode.
Your family. I've waited so long to ask you, to know the truth.
But yeah,
it's too late now.
You just can't have this much talking.
What needs to be done.
Even in like the episodes of Dragon Ball Z or some of those other fighting series where there's just when they're just stretching for time, they wouldn't dare to have this much of a high percentage of talking over action. I wouldn't be upset with them saying one sentence and then showing me 20 seconds of just the characters slashing and slashing back and slashing and slashing back. We don't need a constant one hit, 3 sentence, another hit, 3 sentences.
What?
Who is that?
Why did you falter? Why haven't you finished me?
Why didn't you dodge that blow?
No. Answer me, damn you. You owe me that much.
My actions are answer enough, Valdane. I realized who I'm executing.
You're the Forest King, the embodiment of virtue. It is your duty to eliminate the shadows of...
Valdane, what's wrong?
Stay back! You can still call me by name after what I've become. How much of myself is...
Yeah, we just have an abrupt twist.
You'll be satisfied.
Because we're family.
What?
We're family. No matter what wrongs we've inflicted on each other in the past, we're still connected.
Miss Tulina is the one who convinced me of that truth. It's why
Which
I will not cut down
inherently means that the main characters in the story did nothing to convince Balion to change his his attitude.
Valdane.
Which means the main characters don't really matter.
You think we're family? Just look at our appearances, Balion. nothing in common. We share not even a drop of the same blood. You are as ignorant as they come. An inane despot with no grasp of the truth. You claim to understand, but how could you?
Then explain yourself. I cannot understand unless you talk to me, Valdane.
How does a shadow explain itself? It simply is!
Then don't speak as the shadow. Speak as my brother.
This is a fight that needed to happen.
Tell me.
It could have happened a long time
What do
ago.
you mean we
This
don't
could have
share
been
blood?
the fight that happened at the end of the previous episode. Actually, this would have wrapped up that story very nicely.
Are you so
And
dense you
then
can't grasp that?
this episode should clearly just be
My father is not your father.
should
I
be
am a
100%
strong,
focused
rich
around
woman
Varga
and a terrible
Magma.
dragon.
And these two
No way
are
am
probably
I
going to
your
end up
brother.
working together at the end of this fight anyways.
The late king took pity on my mother and me, claiming I was his bastard to protect us from becoming outcasts. We were being deceived all along. Balion, I am a curse incarnate.
Then
It's a lot of talking here.
you didn't obtain it from a concoction, did you?
Correct? I have dear old dad, my real sire, to thank for my proclivities. So, do you see
This has
now,
been like
fool king?
7 or 8 minutes for this chapter.
I am a mistake, a blight on this forest, and a curse to all Natera.
And I
killed
can't
my
help
mother
but feel
without
like
hesitation.
they
Royals don't commit matricide,
rushed.
That is the purview of the corrupt. Your own parents died from the grief. You have every obligation
Like-
to cut me down. I am the shadow.
Yeah,
a
it
plague
feels like
that
they ran out of
deserves to be
time, and thus
incinerated by the
they
light.
added a bunch of unimportant content to the last episode, when this should have been the last chapter of the last episode. And now that this isn't the last chapter of the last episode, and instead it's a middle chapter in the next episode, then it feels like it's just going to be an incredible rush
Arisa,
towards
I didn't expect you to
wrapping
be
up
here.
the story. Which
Rowan, I'm glad to see
the
you
Steel
safe.
Rebellion conclusion also
I've
felt
managed.
written that way
to
also,
see you're
so
okay,
they're not
too.
really getting better
Rowan,
in their
are you
pacing, in their formatting of their
after Balion?
story.
No. I have words for Valdane.
This is probably
Then I'd better hurry before they hurt one another.
No kidding. Care if I hurry alongside you?
so these two are going to get together
Come on.
when you could have easily had all 4 of them meet together
Found you.
and run
You
towards the
people just
battle.
don't know when to butt out, do you?
And then once again they're throwing in some
You've got my back, right?
radicals,
You bet.
like just
We'll bring an end to this
yet
fight
another
no matter what.
unnecessary fight.
Let's give it everything we have.
Again, it also would make a lot more sense if they were being attacked by the blighted creatures, or if some of the radicals and loyalists were becoming blighted. Yeah, and at this rate, there's basically no way we get a satisfactory wrap up with Varga Magma. No way at all. It's just not going to happen. We're at chapter 11. There's at best 16 chapters. And we'll, like,
You have every obligation to cut me down. I am the shadow.
the only thing you could kind of say here is that maybe Varga Magma says her power, she was gaining her power through the fight between Valdane and Balion. And once you got
Shut your fool mouth,
Balion
Valdane.
and Vardane to stop fighting, she was immediately defeated at that point.
Blood isn't the only thing that bonds a family. We may have first crossed paths in our father's room, but where we came to really understand one another was here. But in truth, perhaps
Of course, we have a
understood you.
danger here of
Until
yet another
Whatever bond
10
I
minutes
claimed
of
we held,
text.
it was forged of pure self-deception. Let us be connected once more, Valdane. But this time, let it be true.
Is this a feeble attempt at pity?
No.
Then a show of self-righteous compassion.
I'm not trying to.
And since this guy's main conflict is the secret hiding his true origins, I'm wondering if you could have switched the story to these two being like gay lovers instead of brothers, and yeah, you could have changed that. That would have just been about the same level of conflict. It would explain at least who Mistalina's other parent would be.
If I strike down my subjects, how could I rule this forest if I killed my own?
Although, yeah, there's no reason to really do that.
I have faltered and struggled.
There is definitely a problem with a royal king kind of caring about his siblings,
Even if this was your will,
because
I won't have
typically in royal stories it's the younger siblings that are out to kill the older brother and become the new king, and there tends to be a lot of treachery in royalty. So like this, there's a lot of jumping through logical hoops that's going on here with Valdane desperately trying to have this play out the way he wants it to go, in which he is killed by Balion, which kind of makes him childish, which if you were gonna have him be childish,
I am a scourge upon this world. Let me die.
honestly, you probably should have him covered in scars, and thus the internal pain in Valdane is shown externally. He does have a scar over his eye, but there's plenty of chest and arm skin they're showing that could have been covered in scars too.
You're a kind man, Lord Valdane. I know what kind of pain and confusion you must be feeling right now.
I feel like Mouseker's getting a custom CG kind of weird.
Needs you, Lord Valdane. Things may seem humglum and grey right now, but we need you.
It's really crazy to give Mousekers, who was seen as the comedic character, a speech.
Major Fluffy Bud.
I'm just your major, so I don't claim to know everything about you. But when you told me I needed to fight, by Natera, I was going to fight. You've given this bag of fur and frenzy reason to keep moving. I don't want you to die, Lord Valdane. Lord Valdane?
You fool. I can take no more of this.
Valdane, please don't go.
I have no interest in hearing any more of your drivel. This is the end, Balion.
It's over. This war is over.
We've no reason to shed blood any longer. Perhaps there never was a reason to begin with.
Yeah, there never was a reason to begin with.
I'll spread word around Managarmr to cease the assault.
So here we have
I'll let you manage everything else.
they've managed to just abruptly end the war with not really resolving much.
Thank goodness. Now we can all...
So we get the third roar of Virga Magna, which probably means we're gonna now jump back in the next chapter
We have very
and
little time left.
and see what Eris and Erica were doing at the same time.
Is there really a way we can save this world?
There has to be. One that doesn't harm Viridia Magna either.
But our legends, they tell us that Viridia Magna destroys the world according to a cycle. If this devastation is preordained, well...
And see, this would be the point where Eris would just show up and say, actually, no,
I'm sorry,
your
my
legends are
child.
wrong. I did the research, and I
Even though you
found
finally poured your heart out to
out
Valdane,
you were wrong.
You're just going to let everything get wiped out?
Yeah, it's a pretty stupid concept to say, well, we've got this legend that says the world is going to end on, like, the year 2000, therefore we're going to sit back and do nothing because something looks like it's threatening the world in the year 2000. That seems like that would be really silly.
And we shall find it.
Erica! Eris!
Balion, you are mistaken. Destruction is not predestined, nor is it the will of Viridia Magna.
Then, you're suggesting we have a chance?
More than a chance. We will band together to forge our own
Well,
fate.
it does seem like they've saved us some time and merged the two groups.
Retreat!
I find myself rather fatigued. I hope all this fighting stops soon.
You? What are you doing here?
What does it look like? I'm tending to the wounded.
So,
I was asking for a reason. Why are you healing my troops?
so the question
Is
is,
it that strange to cherish life?
I guess she's not going to be
You're
the
too
mother.
naive for your own good, princess.
I like that about myself personally. Fruit wouldn't be tasty if it weren't sweet after all.
Yeah. But if you leave them to ripen too long, they rot. Just like all of the sweet musk fruit. Couldn't adapt to life after the blight, so now they're gone.
Have you
They're
tried
making a
looking hard
reference
enough? Maybe you just didn't know
to
where
the
to
musk
find a
fruit.
suitable orchard.
You speak as if you have answers to Natera's suffering.
I'm afraid I don't. But I'm not willing to give up over a mere lack of knowledge.
This is going to be a weird conversation that's going to end in a fight for no reason.
Well, I'll show you where your idiotic kindness gets you.
Why must we always resort to fighting? Can't we simply enjoy the bounty of nature without turning the forest into a battlefield?
You flippant imp. Are you so detached from the world you won't fight for what you believe in?
But I am fighting for what I believe in. I believe in those brave souls from the other world and the future of Natera.
I don't know why she specifically would believe in the travelers, but okay. Let's just keep on going, I guess. We're at an hour and, well, about an hour and 10 minutes.
That is everything I have uncovered about the history of Natera.
And thank goodness they skipped all of the
If what you
flashback
say
stuff.
is true, then this world's destruction was not the virtuous mother's wish.
The people tried to take more power than she could handle, and they ended up destroying themselves.
And don't forget, there was a keeper involved too.
Indeed. I believe it is safe to assume that Viridia Magna's recent activity was caused by a keeper as well.
No guarantee it was the same keeper.
If this destruction isn't the will of the mother, then there is but one thing to be done.
I don't know why it took it so long
Turning
for him
her
to
back
start
her original
talking.
self?
Aye, that is.
That was
if
a
such
weird
thing is
pause.
Even possible.
Eris, you said Viridia Magna was once an ordinary girl, right?
Yes. In order to save her loved ones, she sought and obtained supernatural powers. Or at least, that is what the records show.
Which
And
the
everything
records
is
even
going to
from
be
the past
A-okay.
may be wrong.
I'm sure she still feels the same way, even now.
In that case, let's head to Viridia Magna.
Yeah, I just know we'll be able to.
Which they should have headed to Viridia Magna like
Seems we won't be
hours
able
and
to
hours
reach her
ago.
so easily.
They should have been trying to reach her from probably the word go.
Sorry, but I won't hold back.
I'll spare no effort to take you down.
We will save this world.
Pretty much all the characters now have
No matter what
become
kinds of creepies
more
pop out
and
at us,
more
I won't give up.
bloodthirsty in the way they attack, which, in all fairness, if you want to succeed, you really shouldn't hold back in battle. But we still have a lot of animations where it's just like looks like one hit
Made it
kills
out of
them
harm's way yet.
because the card game is supposed to represent it. They really did nothing with the blighted
There are more of
fairies,
them.
nor did we see any like unblighted fairies, which feels like
wrong,
it should be.
You show no trace of fear, even in the face
There
of
should have been at
countless
least one of those
foes.
characters. You could have made
This is not our first
any
time
of the
facing
dozens
seemingly
upon dozens of
insurmountable
radical
circumstances.
loyalists a fairy.
No matter the obstacle, we've
And they
always succeeded
really
in
would have only had
overcoming
to say
strength.
like 1 or 2 lines of
That's why we're
dialogue
not
and been
scared.
in one fight,
Come
and
on,
then that
Baby,
would have been
let's
it.
go.
You have emboldened me, otherworldly warriors.
And I guess, is that the 4th roar or the 3rd roar again?
That was the 3rd roar. Damn it.
So they still
At
did
this rate,
show half of the story
at this rate,
in the past.
Terra is going to be destroyed.
So every time we saw these
Normally, I would
scenes
avow that words are a force
were
greater
actually
than swords,
flashbacks,
but I feel this fight has helped me better understand you.
which that's pretty bad storytelling.
You've been wavering in your conviction, haven't you?
Like
And for
it's
quite
a
some time,
really
yes.
complicated concept to
Are you
to
trying
have an
to
A
say
plot and a
we
B
have
plot where the B plot is
even as the
occurring
world
at a
crumbles
different
around us?
time point in time.
Say, Gina, I believe I already told you. I fight for what I believe in.
The battle is over! Lower your weapons this instant!
Those 4 brave souls, and in Terra itself.
What? What do you mean it's over, Major?
Lord Valdane has lost. The war has ended.
Apparently that's all it took for the war to end.
Not Lord Valdane.
He merely said Valdane has lost. There was no mention of him dying.
That's right. Lord Valdane still lives.
It sounds as though my father and the other worlders have been busy. I must do what I can to help.
Where do you think you're going?
I wonder if Latika's going
Why,
to show up
to save
again.
Terra, of course.
Save it. You?
Kind of like the worst point ever to
I
have
may
a.
seem like nothing more than a budding flower to you.
So not even going to fight it.
But this world needs me, and I won't abandon it.
It would be funny if
Well then, I'll be on my way. Good day to you.
Mouskers offered her some musk fruit.
I ought to get moving too. News of the truce isn't going to spread itself.
Perhaps I underestimated her. If only she had been
Because he
more
did find
persistent.
some musk fruit.
Then maybe.
What are you mumbling about, Captain?
Apologies, Major. It's nothing. Just got a little lost in my thoughts. I'll see to it that everyone gets the message. You have more pressing matters to attend to. I wish you the best of luck, sir. If we are going to stop Viridia Magna, we'll need our commander.
Right. Stay safe out there, Captain.
Wait, Major. Do you think we've been wrong this whole time?
You know as well as I do. But we have other matters to resolve. before we start arguing over who is wrong and who is right. The war between Skull and Managarmr may be over, but the battle for Naterra still rages on.
It was just a terrible war. Like, and you certainly have to think back and go, hey, the war between the 5 guilds in the previous episodes wasn't much of a war either. It was probably more of a war than this was, but like doing the same thing multiple times over and never getting it right or never improving is not very helpful. It kind of feels like some of the Monster of the Week shows that happen in Western TV. Things like, Charmed or Supernatural, or at least the early episodes and early seasons of Supernatural, where it's just like every single week you have a monster. You know what? Power Rangers is probably a great example of that too, where it's just like every week there's just a new monster and they just do the exact same thing over and over again, and there's very little story, very little improvement. For as long as Power Rangers has probably been running, and then for as many reboots and new instances of it, you would think it would be to the tier of having like 10 out of 10 writing, but it doesn't, because there's just like no budget or ambition, take your pick, to improve. And that definitely feels like the case here, is that there's either no budget or no ambition to make the main story any better than what it's been in the past. And that literally makes it worse, because familiarity breeds contempt. So now that we're having a war-like sequence, a battle-like sequence like this, and it's just reminding me of a slightly better battle-like sequence in a previous episode, it's just getting rated worse and worse in my mind. I'm feeling that this is falling down to 5.8 to 5.5 out of 10 in the writing, because there's just nothing here.
I understand all too well.
I might get a 0.1 for not having Latika and a weird, or any character with a weird way of speaking, play a big role, but that's about all I can say positive. And it would almost make sense if each one of these sentences was going to be a voice line for like Balion's card, but you kind of know that's not the case, because these sentences are too long for like a phrase.
I pray that your true self remains intact.
I could see his card saying like, "Oh, virtuous mother."
If it does, I ask that you bless these poor brave warriors.
But something like this would totally not be in the card sound effects, because that wouldn't make any sense out of context. So it seems like we're going to have to spend another 5 minutes or so trying to convince Lord Valdane to fight with the other groups.
You are a fool, Meowscus. Just as you were when I first met you.
And I guess he was on his knees to start with.
But this time, Lord Valdane, you're the one that's got healing to do.
Indeed.
That's why.
And once again, you have that issue of the height discrepancy. Even on his knees, Lord Valdane's too tall. Meowscus should be looking upward, with his head should be tilted back to like a 5-degree angle. You do run into the risk of him just looking straight onto his like chest.
Irritating pest.
And of course they're just so far over lapped that he has this giant amount of hair.
How positively boorish, interrupting our conversation like that. Don't you agree, Meowskers?
Yes, my lord.
Tell me, Meowskers, do you find me frightening? Or
Yeah.
perhaps pitiable?
And see, they teased that he was just gonna attack Mouskers,
You're just...
but that tease would have only worked had they
You always have been.
broken up the story at that very point and left you
Foolish
waiting for a second. Otherwise, it's
Meowskers,
doesn't work
I
at
have
all.
one final order for you. Take command of Managama and defend Natera.
Yes, Lord Valdane, sir.
Do not fail
That
me.
certainly makes a lot more sense that Mouskers would be in charge than him, because he does still just
Without a plan of action,
look like a bad guy.
need all the luck we can get.
How can I reign in the light if I
Now we're
strike
getting
down my subjects?
flashbacks to things
How
that
could
happened
I
2
rule
chapters
this
ago.
forest if I killed my own little brother?
I suppose we have no choice but to put our faith in our instincts. Just like that foolish brother of mine.
I guess there is something to be said about him calling him a brother. But yeah, as we can see, unless they stretch this out really, really far, there's maybe at most 3 more chapters. And we haven't even made it to Virga Magma. Also, the Morning Star
There she is.
concept has been completely forgotten.
It seems we have a problem.
There are loads more blighted creatures lurking around here.
So that whole symbol and concept should probably be playing more of a role. And it really wouldn't have hurt anything if there was a Morning Star that occurred
I can still
during the first war of
We will make it past
Virga Magma waking up.
When the time is right, you 3 make a break for it. I'll hold them back.
This is a point where he could have just been in the dragon form to start with, and they could have saved some. I've been mispronouncing it. It's Verdia Magma, or Verda Magma. Not Virga with a G. But yeah. In the Steel Rebellion section, there should have been a point where a Morning Star also appeared above the central tower, and that way that symbol means something. It means that the Keeper is near, even if it only appeared right during the final battle.
Face defeat after coming this far would be an utter disgrace. I won't fall here. Not yet.
Yeah, that is kind of the problem you have here, where Nerva seems to like to act in the shadows, and Nexus seem to act completely oppositely with the Morning Star concept. And I guess maybe that means Nerva can transfer from universe to universe, not creating a gate in the Morning Star, but Nexus might be weaker.
I must endure.
It would be funny if it turned out Nexus was actually the good guy, and she intentionally acted as a weak and incompetent bad guy to get the leaders to be powerful enough to then take on Nerva. But that again is too high quality writing for what we're seeing otherwise.
Don't be condescending.
And at a certain point, if there was an amazingly well written twist, but then the rest of the story was bad, there's
Just give me an order.
there's no justification for that level of quality. Like, for instance, if the big twist in Bioshock 1 happened, but the rest of Bioshock 1 had like terrible backstory and world building and terribly written characters, or just terrible writing in general, or no writing in general, then that would not have worked at all. as well as it did.
I'm
The,
so bored. Sure you want to keep fighting?
Of course! We haven't lost yet!
so apparently,
Your funeral.
at
Don't say
this
anything,
point,
yeah.
they still haven't been told
At ease, soldiers.
that the
battle
fight is
between
over.
Skull and Managarmr is over.
What? Is that true, Captain?
Go and spread the message. All fighting is to cease immediately.
Yes, man.
I'll gladly take you on if you don't believe me, Stoneclaw.
I believe you, sheesh. You don't smell like a liar anyway.
You kind of wanted to
So, I
see
guess
these
we're
two
like
characters fight.
Enemies now? Skull and Managarmr working together, huh? Who'd have thunk it?
How can you accept things so readily? What about all the animosity between us? This outcome makes it seem like we were in the wrong the whole time.
Who cares?
Yeah, that's about all they can do for Latika. Is just have her say, "Who cares?" and just want to fight some more.
Who's wrong? Who's
Once again,
right?
they have a
None of that's important.
winking
Like,
animation
all in
that's
the same
not
boat.
useful. Although, in Latika's case, her winking at a girl
All you
is
do keep itching
is
up
frankly
to life right
within
now
her
and shoot your
character.
shot. That's what I'll do.
You're insane.
Lol. I get that a lot.
Somehow you managed to make a lot of sense. Good luck out there, Stoneclaw.
Latika's fine. All right. Guess it's time to get serious.
Yeah, and it feels like now they're just fighting nothing but blighted creatures, and that's the reason why they had them fighting radicals and loyalists so often in the previous section. Where
Light,
I feel like you
shine
could
forth.
have balanced it out a little bit more before this point. I wouldn't be surprised
Are
if
you all right?
Gina and Latika end up
I
being
shall tend to her with a prayer of healing.
girlfriends.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thing.
Super late in the main story, she finally healed somebody in the main one of the main characters. That may very well have been the first instance of her healing anyone, when clearly Eris should have been the healer from the word go. Well, that's a different kind of attack that didn't seem like it did anything.
Now go!
Oh, it delayed reaction.
Thank you, Rowan.
Time to move.
Oddly, Rowan
I
seems
shall
to be
stay
the only
behind to aid
character that
Rowan.
actually is getting much
Good
of a
thinking.
power creep,
Good luck, you two.
and his curse
We're
seems to
counting on you.
now let him be in full control as a dragon.
You cannot maintain that form for long, correct? My healing magic will surely be useful.
So she's getting a bit of
Sorry
power
for the
creep.
trouble.
Also,
Worry not. We are allies.
in that she can now apparently heal people, even though she apparently could have always done it and
We
just
will save this world.
hadn't tried before.
Of that we assure you.
Unfortunately, while you kind of needed that battle to make it to Verda Magma, that just once again felt like they were stretching things out. And it does seem like there's probably going to be one or two more chapters after this, or sub-chapters. And then we have some backgrounds here that are going to be woefully underused, unfortunately.
Look there.
Where there already were some backgrounds that were overused in this episode, in the previous episode.
So that's Viridia Magna.
She has a
appears to be sleeping.
barrier around
We
her,
mustn't lower our guard.
kind of like Asylum, but not
Good
quite.
point. Would you please listen to what we have to say? Can't hear me, huh? Guess we'll have to get closer.
Arisa,
I always wonder about barriers. Like,
Can't I get through here?
there is this
Oh, no.
this possibility always that you would go and touch a barrier and it would just immediately dissolve you, dissolve you
bonds
into
are
like
broken.
atoms.
Now you will face your punishment.
look out!
Erica, no!
Take this, you foul tree!
She doesn't look much like a tree.
There seems to be some sort of barrier protecting her. Did she form it from ether?
Her going "Hiya" is probably not the right word choice.
I will be no mother to fools.
And here we have another custom art.
Will destroy everything.
Once again, it's just too much.
At this rate, we won't be able to stop her.
Yeah, they seem to be
We have no
completely
choice but to retreat for now.
incapable
I'll draw her attention while you escape first.
of doing any damage at
No.
all. Which I
Arisa,
guess is always
what
the
are you
risk.
doing?
I'm not giving up on Natera. No way! Everyone is out there fighting for their lives.
How these characters might make it to Virgo
Everyone is doing their
Magma
best
in
for their
time
world.
seems unlikely, so I wouldn't be
Even though it
surprised
seems
if
hopeless, they're still trying.
all these characters, this is just going to be the last time we see them.
I won't hesitate while there are so many people working together. Plus, I could never leave you behind, Erica.
She literally left her behind
We're
just
partners,
5
and
chapters
don't
ago.
you forget it.
But we can't get near her. What are we supposed to do?
There has to be a way.
Broken. Pierced. Consumed.
There's always
See,
hope.
she's doing like some
It's
kind
easy
of
enough to
word
say,
magic
But where is it?
like Yuan.
Why, it's right here. Miss Delina!
You made it here all by yourself?
So yeah, Miss Selena is going to show up and save the day
Pierce through her barrier with
and
ordinary swords or arrows.
maybe replace her completely.
But if you happen
It
to share
doesn't
the
seem...
virtuous mother's gift for manipulating ether,
She doesn't seem like she's going to turn out to be a
Predict
bad
we would
guy.
need you?
I wouldn't call it a prediction per se, but I was born with unique powers, and I ran into other worlders who have promised to save my world. I knew I would be needed at some point. Anyway, I will require time to take down that barrier. Could I ask the two of you to guard me while I focus?
And Miss Selena is
We've got this.
just totally not a
I see no
character who
reason
is
to
written
object.
well enough for her to turn out to be the
Our bond,
savior.
my love, it's all broken. And now you will face your punishment.
You won't be destroying anything on our watch.
You pretty much needed to have tossed Gina and Mouskers and Lanica out and focused more on just Baleon and Valdane and Miss Delina, and had it be a sort of love triangle, although not a romantic love triangle, in the two brothers loving each other brotherly and loving the daughter and niece.
Driving me to hope's end yet again. I will
See,
destroy everything.
this doesn't even feel like this is going to be a lot of text. I think they're just going to rush to the end.
She's talking to us like she's met us before.
It seems she's still haunted by what the ancients did to her in the past.
If she's still hurting, then we just need to comfort her. To show her people are still good. And that she doesn't have to be sad anymore.
It's a nice thought. How are you going to accomplish that?
Devoured me. Consumed me.
Miss Delina should be ready to go soon. We just have to hold on a little longer. Apologies for the wait. I finished gathering the necessary ether.
Good work,
Where?
Miss Selena.
Now bring that bear
Where
down.
in the dead wasteland around her would there have
After all,
been
that
ether?
words are a force greater than swords. But there are times when crossing blades leads to a better understanding.
And why write that at all? Why not just say I've been saving up ether for a long time for this point?
I pour all that I am into this blade. Forgive this offense, but we must reach you. Ether of Natera, I beseech you. Surge through my steel.
Too
Carve
much
open my
talking.
path with your shining light.
Nice, and frankly, too many CGs. Like they blew their budget on CGs
Did it.
in this episode, and
I am the
they
forest
probably should have
princess
spent more
after all.
budget on writing.
Miss Delina, what's wrong? Erica, these are my last words to you.
Enough with the dying act. You're not fooling anyone.
Oh, was it that obvious? But I have exhausted all my power. It's in your hands now.
See, her being a little
We
bit
won't
silly
let you
and
go,
childish
Princess.
would have been a lot better than Latika being just like completely weird and
Selfish progeny.
and talking strangely the whole
Foolish
time,
children.
talking like a valley
I
girl.
will be mother to insolent mortals
Or-
no longer. Nothing will be spared from devastation.
And see, half of these lines she's just repeating. It's like the same thing over and over again.
Oh no! How many was that?
The fourth? The end of Natera.
No, Erica! Don't say that!
Well, then kill her.
I know. We may not be able to change the past, but we can change the future.
You're gonna have to knock her out or kill her. Take your pick.
Erica!
This blood-stained blade represents my shameful past, my unforgivable sins.
Do we
Even
really
after
need
coming this far, I still feel lost.
this dialogue?
I have yet to understand why I continue to fight.
Unless they're gonna
Princess
kill
was my
Erica
everything.
off right now.
All I did in order
Like,
to save
this
her.
was not necessary or helpful
But I let my
addition.
past control me. I lost sight of the present. And I was at a complete loss over my future. Even now, my heart continues to wander aimlessly. Miss Delina once convinced me to be more open about my emotions. But it's disgraceful. All that lies within me is confusion.
I
I'm
guess
the same,
maybe
Erica.
this is supposed to be
There's so
character
much I still don't understand.
character
All I know
development
is
for both of these
I have
characters.
to try my hardest. Yeah. So since we're both lost,
Once again, though, I
let's
would
be
say
lost
I'd like to
together.
see them redraw this,
And
like
then we can help
a
each other
skirt
move
being
forward.
blown up,
That way
giant
it won't be so scary.
capes being blown up, ribbons being blown up. It's just
You
like
truly are resilient.
ridiculous amounts
I will
of
exhibit that same strength,
action.
so that we may continue to stand side
And
by side.
frankly, just way too much detail
Let's do this.
in their outfits.
Tarnished. Our bond. Ruined. Devastation awaits you.
Wait. Maybe Viridia Magna is lost too.
Yes, her regret is almost palpable. It's possible that the Keeper took advantage of her weakened emotional state to control her.
We
Okay,
need to tell her that we understand.
but then
That
how do
we've
you
seen the
break
damage the Keepers can
somebody
do. Maybe
out
the
of
real
control
Viridia
from
Magna
the
will hear us, and she'll save
from
the
the
world.
keepers? Because Yuan really dropped the ball as far as telling people
We will
how
destroy not
he
Viridia
he
Magna,
broke
but
free
the
from
power of the Keepers
the
that corrupted
Nova.
her.
Right.
And
Carissa,
boy, is this custom
you
CG
deserve to be a savior of this
way
world.
different looking than the other animations.
What, Erica? We'll save her together, along
Right.
with this world and everyone in it.
So even if
Suppose
here
you're
you
right,
can see,
Lisa.
even if they were to redraw the
It's
characters,
natural to feel lost
they
and
they would
confused,
have had a
but we
more
know what we have to do.
modern,
I will take hold of
softer
both my
way of
past and
animating the
future,
characters.
and from them I will draw power.
And
Viridia Magna, listen to us.
this
There's
would
still
take a
love
little
in
bit
this
less
world.
room out.
Your bond
Uh,
with your children remains unsevered.
Still, I would say there's just a lot of that detail here that needs to be removed.
That's right. I once. Their love.
It's pretty impossible though to have a sappy ending where they convince her to believe in love when
Gave it everything we had.
every single chapter here centers around fighting and violence. Like, it's a difficult story, frankly, to write, to try and have sappy endings and sappy stories.
For bringing life back to my forest. The blight! It's disappearing!
So, yeah, that definitely feels rushed.
I was foolish for trying to destroy all life. I was confused, corrupted. I thought, if my children were to consume the world, I would rather see it cleansed instead. I lost sight of the bond with my progeny, and the love that links us all to the land. Even the first plea that granted me motherhood was naught but a fleeting memory.
I wonder if they're going to change her back to her original appearance. Yep.
It was your commitment to each other.
And I imagine there probably is a Viridia Magma card.
Have my deepest gratitude,
Magna card.
dear children.
The world's going to be okay now, Miss Magna. People will learn to appreciate their connection with you, with the world, and with each other.
And should you be haunted by your past, just know that it's a chance to move forward.
They probably needed to remind people that she sleeps most of the time. Otherwise, it would have been fairly easy for her to just explain what's going on and explain her grievances.
In order to revive my creation, I must slumber once more. Brave children, go now with my blessing.
What did she just do to them, though? Did she give them power?
Do you feel funny? I feel like I'm floating or something.
I guess I feel a little warm. What was that just now?
Good question.
Glad to see you two safe.
But apparently only those two got it, instead of everybody getting it.
Rowan! Eris!
I'm pleased to see you both made it through the conflict.
It'd be kind of funny if it turned out it made them grow a foot.
Looks like it. And we were on the fourth.
Because I could kind of believe that Erica and Eris both are a couple years younger than, like, no, Erica and Orisa are a couple years younger than Eris is.
Not really the time to stop and smell the roses, is it? Those wounds of yours need tending to.
Looks like the forest should make a full recovery.
We really did it. Everyone, we saved the world. Can you believe it?
I guess the question is, can these people travel to another world by themselves, or do they need Yuan's help?
It is as if we have truly, finally become allies.
Also, I don't think we ever saw Baphomet actually being defeated in the previous chapters. So...
I'll go check on the Managarmer folks. I have a feeling some of them might
yeah,
still
what
be
happens
reluctant
there?
to cooperate.
And I will tend to the injured.
And if this is like 1,000 years in the future of the time of the Steel Rebellion, then
It looks like we've still got our work
that potentially might keep the two teams broken up forever. And that would be kind of bad writing. Okay. So, one more chapter at an hour and 45 minutes.
Latika, you're hurting me.
She's still holding her hand or
You were going
hugging
off
her.
somewhere, so I had to hug extra tight. You're not getting away either, honeydew.
She gave
I
a
must ask that you release me. My companions and I have important matters to attend to.
she gave a a nickname to every
I
female.
apologize for my guardian's behavior.
That's just how she shows her affection, right? More importantly, will
Of course,
Natera be
she
okay?
doesn't do it to him,
Viridia Magna has returned
and
to
never
her soul.
did.
Although I would be more inclined to call it a meditative state. The virtuous mother has temporarily isolated herself in order to focus on restoring the world with ether. The blight will disappear soon enough. The forest's recovery is all but assured. Now, the only issue remaining is that of my brother.
But this still does feel like a
Is it safe
world
to
that
assume he and
could
Meowskers aren't going to
never
come say
really
goodbye?
become
So it seems.
like hugely populated with magic or anything like that, because it seems like there's just never going to be enough aether for that, and it seems like there's not going to be any humans on the planet ever.
A shadow has no place amongst such auspicious company. What's more, I have no reason to be saddened by their departure. I have you by my side, after all. And the rest of my comrades as well.
That's right, Lord Valdane.
Farewell, my cursed friend. If the path you have chosen is indeed true, I suppose there is hope for my own future yet.
I still
Yeah, we're
can't
not going
believe
to
you
get
had the
major
audacity to
wrap up.
pretend you were dying. What am I going to do with you?
You say that, Erica.
And I guess she is effectively a princess, so
appear to be on the verge of tears.
Erica is in
Perhaps
the
I was.
position where she's replacing her original princess with Miss Delina.
Splendidly. You're the one who told me to be more honest with my feelings.
Did I now?
Yes, you did. And I'm grateful.
I will truly miss your company, Erica.
I feel the same way, Forest Princess.
Well then, everyone, we're off to another world.
I'll be sad to leave this place, but I have a feeling we'll see it again someday.
Oh, man. This is so depressing. Just hold it together, laddie. Farewell, babes.
Brave heroes from another world, you have our deepest gratitude. I pray that you remain safe on your journey.
And where are they
Please
going to
feel
end
free
up?
to return whenever you like. You are always welcome here.
Doesn't really add anything to the story if they can travel back to other worlds.
Farewell.
Unless they travel back to this world and thousands of years have passed
Time to meet
again.
back up with the others. Everyone ready to jump to a new world?
So apparently they just close their eyes and focus.
Testing, testing. Oh, is this thing on? Can anyone hear me? Well, whatever. Just pipe down and listen up. Hey, insects, wallowing in your iddle-widdle lives down there, kneel before me and surrender. Or don't. Makes no difference to me.
So here we have
You'll
Baphomet talking.
Now carve this into your think tanks.
And they tell you it's
The name's
Baphomet.
Baphomet Ardlight, and Natera is mine.
So is this Baphomet showing up after the events we just saw? Or is this a recording of what happened hundreds of years ago? So we got true allies and Naturian heroes. Okay, and so that was Seeds of Conflict, harrowing, and at the end of Gears of Rebellion Uprising, we didn't defeat Baphomet, obviously. So we've been going from episode 5 all the way to episode 8, and they have just drawn out a story pretty terribly. Like, honestly, I think we're at 5.5 out of 10 on episode 8. That was pretty bad. And then here in the next one, we'll have Baleon, leader of the Skull, and Valdurian, leader of the Magmar, meet up on battlefield. They struggle against each other, only to learn that the rest of their allies that Verde Magma was corrupted by an outside influence. They rush to the Great Mother and stop her rampage, therefore saving Natera. Touched by the power of Orisa and Erica's bond, Verde Magma blesses them with new powers. So apparently they do have new powers, as Orisa and others prepare to leave. The despot Belphamot appears. So, invasion of the World Reaver. Now we know who is the World Reaver, and it does kind of open up this door to Belphamot perhaps being the new big bad guy, and we're just going to be fighting him quite a bit. Of course, we still are in that position, and will be, to see if, when this says new story chapter 9 through 14, if that is a case that episode 9 is something that came out in the 4th year anniversary, which this game is only about 4 years old, so maybe we don't have a full completion of the story, and we may very well end with them still trying to defeat Belphamot, or this might even be worse, and it may be only chapter 9 through 14 of episode 9, which might not actually be the full wrap-up of episode 9. Or it could be worse for my purposes, and it could be that there actually is an episode 9, 10, 11, 12, and 14 that are going to unlock, and that means there's just a ridiculous amount of more time still to put into this. Meanwhile, I did mention at the beginning I'm not feeling particularly well, so now I have to spend extra time to do the daily quest. Probably not going to get that done. Also, they started another arena Rebellion Cup thing, so I need to play that. So I've got a lot of extra work that needs to be done. And we still are just maintaining getting about 1 ticket for the new card expansion per day, and roughly getting somewhere around 90 gold per day with the main story quests, which I imagine I might get more gold if I wasn't doing the main story quests. Alright, so we have a silver, and then a bunch of bronze. Tyrant of Mayhem, I think we have 2 of those. Holy Bright Altar, we have about 10 of those, I bet. Dragon Impact, this might be new. Give +1/+1 and rush to a Dragoncraft follower in your hand. I may not have that. Sweet Spell Sorcerer, we have at least 1 of those. That summons a Happy Pig, which, okay. We have probably 3 to 5 of those. Piquant Potioneers. Reclusive Ponderer, we had 3 to 5 of those. I will also say, when I first started opening packs, I got quite a few of these cards, and then I kind of stopped getting them. So it does kind of feel like there is mostly randomness when you are opening a pack, and that there isn't any kind of pity timer or assistive card pack opening feature, short of opening 400 packs and getting tradables at that point. And Artifact Scan and Tropical Groupers, still have plenty of those. Let's come over here and let's see quickly to see where we are with the fortune cards, just how many still are left to get. There's Double Strike, there's 1 here, which is a legendary card, 2 here, which are probably legendary cards, 2 here, and then as they get more expensive, 4, 5 here, and then 5 here. It does definitely feel like you're not likely to have a complete collection of cards. If anything, it seems like they confuse the issue quite a bit, because once you start to get a close to full completion collection, they start to throw some curveballs in there and you start getting animated versions of the cards, whereas we'd probably only have like 6 pages if I took all the animated version cards and got rid of them, or turned all the non-animated version of the cards into animated version of the cards, which I don't see any way you would do that, frankly, without having hundreds upon hundreds of dollars and experience. Like, yeah, you'd have to spend thousands of dollars, frankly, to get a full animated collection. Alright, so we have not that card. Not that card. Not Vera Knight Fanatic. Here we go. Here's Viridia Magma. So she is from the Verdant Conflict expansion, and she is a legendary card by the looks of the vials needed. And I don't have her, and she's also a Natura card, which I think it is also worth mentioning that the Natura cards might be falling out of favor. Let's see. If I don't have her, then that means this expansion is in rotation. So, like, Rebirth of Glory and then Verdant Conflict are really just 3 expansions away. So, next time there's a new expansion, Rebirth of Glory will be out, and Verdant Conflict will be out after the expansion after that one, which pretty much means I think Natura cards will stop being focused on, and I guess the World Uprooted cards will probably have characters from the next chapter. It does seem like it's an off and on situation where it's like one expansion has cards from the main story, the next expansion has cards that aren't really from the main story, and then back the other way. So there might be an argument to going back and buying old cards, but I don't think so. I think you have to just move forward and hope that Shadowverse isn't going anywhere. And 4 years in, I think Shadowverse isn't going anywhere. I think it's got enough of a player base to the point where it will always kind of exist. Of course, in all fairness, a lot of collectible card games, they hit a saturation point, and then there are people that will always play it, but it's never going to really go any further than that. As far as Flair going out, let's see. Natrian Hero is the new one that we just got, which I guess that kind of also indicates that at the moment there's only one more story related label to get, and the rest of these I think you get through other challenges and single player content I haven't played. We were getting quite a lot of emblems for a while there, but then that kind of stopped. So I haven't gotten a new emblem in a long time. And I was only getting leaders when I was specifically making progress there. And I am making decent levels of progress as far as these characters and their levels. Like, I basically purchased that one and was gifted the other one. I still have yet to win a single Bloodcraft ranked game. Yeah, I figured I earned Lapis, although I don't even know who Lapis is, from opening packs, and I earned Nexus, I think, from doing a main story. And then decks. If I was to come back and look at a deck, do we have any new card backs? We may have like one or two. We're earning a couple. Yeah, we have like one new card back. So, yeah. There's a lot of customization in this game. Way better than what you get for free when playing Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering Arena. Magic the Gathering Arena, I think, is particularly bad around that concept. Anyways, we've been going 2 hours now, and that's going to be it for this recording. So, as always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a gift card or a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.